Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm just
Perfect.
getting everybody on here.
Perfect. Are you Angela, by the way?
I am.
Hi. Nice to meet you in person.
All right.
Pulling up my stuff here too.
Shelly is on. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Hi, Shelley.
Hi. Let me see if I can get my video turned on. Oh, there it is. Hi.
There we are. There we can see your smiling face.
Hi, Sean. Nice background. Can't hear you, but looks nice.
It does.
There, now you can.
Who else do I
Looks
got?
like a nice place to have a pint.
Yes.
Okay. I have Samsung SM. I'm not sure if that is someone that is on the committee. Can you raise your hand if you're on the committee? No, I'm gonna stay allowed to talk.
I do not have a Samsung SM on my list.
It'll be Jeremy Puccini.
Oh, okay. Great.
Okay, is that correct then?
Yeah, Jeremy can be panelist.
Okay. And then I have well, I see Shay and Brad as attendees and they're unmuted so they can talk, but they're not because, well, Shay may be become a panelist now. Yes,
Hey, Shay.
okay. I guess it looks like I'm waiting for most of the people on YDA. And then,
So Philip is not able to attend tonight. I believe Brian King, Chuck Mitchell, Jim Phillips couldn't because of a fire meeting.
okay,
Jason should be on, and I believe Haley should be on.
not yet.
Um,
I do not have any of the others yet. Everyone else has been promoted to a panelist.
okay.
And Christy, are you able to work the controls or do I need to click something on my end that says you're allowed?
It says host disable participant screen sharing.
That's what I thought. Okay, so share. Okay, does that work?
There. Did that work? Can you see the
We do, yes.
Okay, awesome. I'm not quite as adept at Zoom as I am Teams. Not that that's saying much, but
Angie, I think Brad is still an attendee rather than a panelist, so we can promote him if you can.
Okay, I don't, oops. I think. Oh, he'll be rejoining as panelist now.
Okay.
All right, so if you want me to just start adding the others as they come on,
Yeah, so you should, if you see Brian King, Chuck Mitchell, Jason, or uh,
Kara or
yeah,
Jenny.
or Haley, those two,
Haley.
I think. Yep.
Okay,
Otherwise, we can probably just get started.
okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Just kind of wanted to give a brief agenda so you know what you're in for. Um, Start out with a round of introductions and then give you a little bit of background on the process, why we've asked you here, what we'll be doing and when we will be doing it. And then a brief kind of background on some of the existing information and park data that we've collected so far. And then really what we're here for is just kind of it's a listening session. So I will start. My name is Kirsty Oswald. I'm a landscape architect with AKS Engineering. I've been here almost 18 years. I grew up in Washington and still live in the small community that I grew up in here. Went to WSU and graduated with a Bachelor in Landscape Architecture, and then I've been working and loving what I've been doing at AKS ever since.
Great. I'll go next, I guess. I'm Shelley Reimer. I am the city administrator for the city of Yamhill and I've been there not quite a year. Next month will be 1 year. And let's see, just looking forward to putting this Parks Master Plan together and working with this committee of people. So I think that's it. Angie, do you want to go next?
Sure, my name is Angie. I'm the city recorder. I'll be here to help run the Zoom and take notes.
I'll go next. If you can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Fantastic. So my name's Shay Corrigan. I'm the mayor of the city of Yamhill, and I'm looking forward to the whole process. I think it's going to be exciting.
Oh, awesome.
I'm Sean Freilinger. I'm on the planning commission. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversations.
I'm Brad Windecker, live in Yamhill. I'm a member of Yamhill Community Club, been involved with Derby Days, things like that. And looking forward to seeing what we can do to take the parks to the next level in the future.
Cool.
Jeremy, do you want to go next?
I think
Yeah, I'm Jeremy Cucini. I grew up in Yamhill, pretty much lived here all my life. I'm just trying to see if we can get something for our student athletes and push that agenda forward.
I don't know if there's anyone else on, is there at this
I
point,
think
Angie?
that's everybody.
Okay.
Awesome. We've got a good group. I'm excited as well. So why are we doing this, I guess, is the kind of the basic question. And really, we're doing this as a long-range planning tool. The last Parks Master Plan was done in 2004, so we're over 20 years past that date. And so this process, we either hope to kind of reaffirm some of those existing goals that were in that original master plan or establish new goals for the next kind of the 20-year planning range. That will help us prioritize budgets and projects, kind of identify any gaps or overlaps in recreational amenities citywide, and encourage community investment, something that we're hoping to achieve out of this process. I'll touch a little bit more on that later. And then one of the most important things is giving you that necessary background information so that you can go and successfully apply for grants to implement some of these projects. So the process that we're doing now, we're currently reviewing and doing assessment of the existing plans, the existing parks, looking at the policies that are in place now. And so we've been working with Shelley on that. We met a couple about a month ago, I think, now, out and got a really exciting tour of the parks. It was a lot of fun. We will be starting off with a public outreach and engagement period, which is what we are hoping you can help with in this first part, and that will be starting here shortly. And then based on what we've learned from those first two steps, then we will be going ahead and developing those recommendations and policies and priority rankings for the final master plan recommendations. And what is your role? So I really appreciate everybody that showed up today. I know this is kind of dinner time, and so I appreciate you taking time out of your evening, especially on a nice sunny day like today. But as I mentioned before, there's basically 3 steps where we'd really appreciate your feedback. This is the first meeting where we'd like to get your insights. You all have unique backgrounds and perspectives, and so We'd like to take those and help shape how we reach out to the community, make sure that that is a successful process. Once we have done that, we'll be summarizing that feedback we hear and coming back to you with those results, and we'll be discussing that, and that will help shape what we prioritize for the master plan concepts. And then you'll also, as a final step, get to review and help provide feedback for that final master plan before we adopt it. So we anticipate that this whole process will take roughly 6 months or so. To give you a little background, these are some of the highlights from that 2004 master plan document that I mentioned. Not in any particular order. I'm not saying that these need to continue to be priorities, just kind of the highlights from those. So for Beulah Park, replace the existing restroom, which has already been completed. Fencing around the playground, which has been partially completed. There's fencing along the 3rd Street frontage side, and I think there might have actually been fencing on the Hemlock Street side, but I think that might have been removed as part of the grading project. Leveling the playground surface, paving the parking areas and access roads, which again has been partially completed. There's paved ADA parking there now, and then that partial street extension with the new development there. Tree health assessment, which is ongoing, removing the utility shed, which I think used to be the old caretaker's house. That's been completed, and the skate park ramps have been replaced. The wood ones have been replaced. So that's been completed. Several things that have not been done yet. Remove the park pavilion and food booths for visibility into the park and security reasons, and then the community center were high priorities that time. For Jane Heinrich Park, they identified that as a community playfield, which included like paved access and paved and gravel parking, restrooms, security lighting, outfield fencing, and water fountains. Secure some of the non-public access areas. That would be primarily the public works compound in the wastewater treatment area. Connect the trail to Beulah Park and add additional sports fields and cooperative projects with the school district. Some other priorities not related specifically to either of those 2 parks were connecting the community through a hiking and nature trail that functionally linked both the parks and the existing system. This is a master plan concept, we'll say, that is about a year old. I think it was done pro bono, perhaps, and I don't know how much public input was put into that, but it's something I believe that the council has seen, and while not approved necessarily, was supportive of some of the elements. So this is for Jane Henrich Park, included some softball fields, RV parking with hookups, maybe to generate some revenue, food cart area, and then parking as well. And we can come back to any of these. I want to make sure we have plenty of time to have good discussion at the end. So moving through these quickly, but we can always come back to it. Something else I want to discuss is pertinent information. We'll be looking at SCORP, and that's a statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. They just published a new one. It'll be for the 2025 through 2029. And the reason that this is something we want to keep in the back of our mind is primarily that the Oregon Parks and Recreation administers the grant programs, including the local government and recreational trails grants. And so if we can hit some of these priorities, your chances of getting those grants increases. And so for this next 5-year period, the importance and benefits of recreation to the local economy is something that they're looking at. I think that probably aligns well with a lot of our goals here from what I'm hearing from Shelley. Balancing conservation with outdoor recreation, engaging with underserved communities and outdoor recreation efforts. And then I just took this snip from their survey. This was done in 2022 on a statewide level. And again, this is Yamhill County, not necessarily the city of Yamhill itself, but it kind of gives you an idea of what the respondents close to home thought as priorities. So lighting and security, children's playgrounds and play areas that have natural materials like nature play type facilities, and then sports fields like soccer, baseball, football. And then dispersed areas would be like an outdoor swimming pool, spray park, visitor center. And then this was an interesting one to me, cabins or yurts with heats, lights, bathroom, and kitchen. So that was a kind of an interesting response. I don't know where that came from, but moving on here. This is what we've documented so far at Beulah. You guys probably know it way better than I do, so I'm not going to get into too much detail here. We can come back to this as a frame of reference, but the restroom has been replaced recently, fairly new gazebo, the derby car ramp, playground, basketball, the bingo hall, food vendor area, and skate park. Probably some of the highlights there. Jane Henrik, and we have kind of the trail system here represented in the green. That's currently bark chips. Gravel access road to the wastewater treatment. RC park and benches and tables along the trail there, and then basically backstops for 2 softball fields that have been decommissioned. And then a little tiny pocket park off of Camellia Street includes what I would classify as a tot lot and a smaller play equipment area, benches and picnic tables and trash receptacles, and then a very nice paved path that comes over here, crosses a bridge, and then leads to the back side of the Yamhill Carlton High School. So with that, I'd like to open it up to either questions or discussion on that. I know I went through that pretty quickly, but I wanted to make sure that we had time to hear from you, because that's what we're here for. I put some icebreaker questions here on the screen, but we don't have to stick to script either.
Well, I can kick us off here. What do you think is the best thing about the parks? Really the primary meeting place for events and social activity within Yamhill is Beulah Park. All outdoor, so that's nice. The I don't know what we call it, the pavilion, the covered area, where we put the blocks in to make the stage for Derby days. That's useful. Then on the flip side, what we don't have, or I guess what's insufficient, is the bingo hall is really old, and the buildings that we use for the vendors and things like that are really old. And so the electrical's old, and they kind of have to be maintained as best we can, and we using them for storage in some areas, and it's a lot of work to get like the bingo hall ready to use for Derby days, things like that. So we have facilities. The outdoor facility is great. We have great trees. We bought a bunch of tents and gazebo type stuff, tents we put up for Derby days. So we've been adding more shade each year. And, because 2 or 3 years ago it was so hot, that was the main complaint. And so we've added a lot more shade by buying the covered tents, and that worked really well. So we've got a great outdoor social event meeting place for, the town's main social event, as I would call it. But then we're lacking on a facility that we can use year round. I think we don't have the facilities at Beulah Park to really generate any income. There's not really anything we can rent out, the way that if we built a really good community center that you could hold indoor events all year long, and then it could be used for the existing events for things like bingo and things like that. I think there's a huge opportunity there. So, you're not gonna, if you have a wedding at Beulah Park, you don't really need to rent it. It's just a nice space with trees. If we had a really good community center, I think people would have family parties there, and there should be some fee, and there you could have weddings there and all kinds of things. So, charity events, business meetings, and so on. And so, in town, we don't have a whole lot of places for 30, 40, 50 people to get together, let alone, 200. And I think Beulah Park is a primary place where we could do that. And it would allow us to take the buildings that have been there a really long time. They serve their purpose. We got a lot of use out of them. There's been a lot of rounds of bingo played in that hall. I think people really enjoyed it, but and I don't think we should stop playing bingo. People seem to really get a kick out of it. But it's definitely it's the building of, the 80s and 90s. And I think we could, if you look at what other towns have, and we look at some of our peer towns of, roughly our size throughout Oregon, there's some really great facilities out there. And I think there's a huge opportunity for us to figure out what the grants are, or what the availability of federal and state money is, figure out how we align our goals with those. We shouldn't be giving up stuff or doing things we don't want to do just to get the grants. We should figure out where's the overlap and where are we aligned on what the state wants to do, what any federal money or corporate money, private money for that matter, and then go after those because um, Yamhill has the potential, especially with Beulah Park, with how big it is, how beautiful it is, and the fact that we have these old buildings that are still being used today. There's a lot of justification to make an investment for the next 20 years.
Do you feel like if could we combine the purposes of the current food vendor uh, building with a new community center? Would we need both?
Yeah, I don't think we need a physical building for
Okay.
food vendors, for
Okay.
one event. I mean, food vendors, you look at the Oregon Air shows and, fairs and food vendors usually bring a gazebo,
Hmm.
a tent, things like that. We need to have
Hmm.
utilities. So we need to have a way to get electricity to wherever, food vendors are going to exist. So
Hmm.
you have to think about that, but that could be on a post. That could be, all kinds of ways that the city could handle the utilities aspect of it. There's not really, I don't think there's a huge need to rebuild a food vendor structure. It's just that's not something that's super common, I don't think. Whereas a facility for year-round events that can be rented out and has good, lighting and security and ADA access and audiovisual capabilities. If you want to have a business meeting there or something, I think that's really obvious that for something for us to invest in.
I like it.
So
You had
if I
meant,
can,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry. No, I was going to actually say I couldn't agree more with what the gentleman just said there. Um, we, Shelley and I actually recently had a city county dinner at the Evergreens new event space, and it sits about 100 people. It has built-in audio and video. It has a kitchen in the back. It has like a bar service area in the front, and it's something I think that we should take a look at. In that, I think maybe a less modern version of a building setup like that would serve Yamhill very well. Again, it would make a perfect bingo hall. You can seat up to 100 people. It could easily be used for weddings and so forth. It would serve a great purpose during Derby days.
Hmm.
Although I do like the idea of having the food vendor booths because it's kind of unique to Yamhill. I also think that the food industry has moved away from that. There's a lot of portable options, and
Hmm.
most places have them. Some of the best places that are there for Derby days end up with a food truck or what have you. And so if
Right.
we did have a utility bank where a person could plug their shore power, so to speak, into a utility pole that had an option for, you know, four over here and four over here type of thing in the park, might be space better utilized for us.
And you have actually very good vehicle access into the park itself, a lot better than most parks I see. You
Yeah.
can drive clear through. I mean, obviously, this is very congested pedestrian area during Derby days and things like that. But I
So
think
I would,
there's,
It would
I,
be a lot harder to set up derby days if we
yeah,
could not
could
drive right
through.
past right into the park the way that we do, given the amount of setup that's involved with the hay bales and all the other stuff that we do. So that is a unique part of the park that
Mhm.
I think we wouldn't want to give that up.
I do also
Absolutely
think,
not.
no, go
But we
ahead.
do have to be cautious of the fact that although paved all the way through, that asphalt was not paved designed for automobile traffic. So prolonged use or parking of heavy vehicles, from what I understand from Public Works, is not a desirable thing. It's
And
sort of like you mentioned, get the hay bales in, get the cars in, get back off of it type of a thing.
I was going to bring up parking. Just that seems like every time, like during Derby days, if somebody wants to come from across town or something and they don't want to walk, there's limited parking. Um, and I agree with all the other stuff as far as like the community center. I think that would be a big plus. The drawback to the community center is just that we have such beautiful trees in there, and if you build anything in there, you're gonna have to take some trees out probably, which is unfortunate. But I don't know what options we have to try to work around that. But so I'm coming at this as an empty nester with grandkids, and so uh, the playground, it's something I appreciate,
Hmm.
um, and the nice bathrooms, you know. The other thing is we use Jane is it Henrik? I never know how to pronounce it right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Heinrich.
we use that Heinrich. We use that a lot. With we have an Aussie that needs lots of exercise, and so um, without that, that would that's a big plus. And there's this. I don't know how many people use it. We run into people out there using it as a dog park, but I think that's a benefit that we have such a big open space to run dogs and pets and stuff. But again, parking it down there isn't the best. It's limited. Although we did the recent improvement has helped a lot. So
I did when I was there. It looked like people had kind of even set up like a chuck it ball station and things, which I thought was kind of nice.
yeah. So
Chrissy,
yeah,
if
if
you
we
want,
ever stop without our chuck it, then we can.
Chrissy, if you flip back to Beulah Park real quick.
Yeah.
So to Sean's point, one of the things about Beulah Park right now is that the two structures, the bingo hall that's kind of in
Hmm.
the southeast, not in the corner, but yeah, right there, and then the vendor building that's in front of the basketball court.
Hmm.
The thing with the bingo hall right now is it kind of cuts off the southeast corner of the park.
It's true.
And
Okay.
so right now, the main, at Derby days, none of the vendors want to be back there. You're kind of behind the building. And so it's used, that's where we put the kids carnival and stuff like
Okay.
that. So I think there's an opportunity to utilize this space. There, it would definitely involve, taking out some trees that are in that back corner. But I think if we were to put it in a structure, I would advocate for not taking the trees out on the west part of the park. There's a lot of trees there, beautiful shade, really
Hmm.
nice area, especially, and like the booths go up for the event vendor area where people are going through the exhibitor area. But if we took down the bingo hall and built a slightly larger structure that was closer to the back corner, we would be definitely making some trade-offs. There's some trees that we would have to take down to do that, but then I think it would open up the park a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so,
So,
right now we have some kind of dead areas because the buildings are kind of right closer to the center versus pushed back, towards the back of the park. And I think originally there was some horseshoe pits and things like that that were
Yes.
probably really popular a long time ago. And I think there's a probably a good opportunity and we'll have some trade-offs. Nothing's going to be, hey, everything's positive and we don't have any downsides to it, but there's probably an opportunity to utilize the space a little bit better than what we have right now where the buildings are there in the center.
Brad, which corner were you envisioning moving a potential
The
kind of this?
southeast, yeah, the
Okay,
southeast
that
bottom
one.
right corner. Yeah, I mean, if you look at where all of the area is for Derby days, the activity is in the center
Yeah,
and on the
see it.
entire left-hand side of the west part of the park. Um, and we utilize that back corner for the kids' carnival sort of thing, but it's a pretty significant area that we can't really use for exhibitors, and we're limited with where you wouldn't put food trucks back there and so on and so forth.
I'm just s- throwing this out there. I'm not saying that this is a great idea or anything. Is the basketball court utilized to its full potential now? Like, is that a very popular activity? Is that something where maybe we could reduce the size of that, and that might be a good area for a community center?
I
Um,
would be really surprised if there's full court 5-on-5 basketball there that often. You
okay.
know? So if you said, do we want people to be able to shoot a basketball hoop? I see people out there doing
Hmm.
that. I don't think I've ever seen, a full-on 5-on-5 game of basketball going on. Not to say it
Okay.
never happens, but
Okay.
I think we could probably put in a half court with a good hoop. And so families that want to play some basketball and shoot some hoops, it's available. But we don't have, the full court. So there's probably some space there. And I think there's a similar argument that we've had with the EM Community Club with the skate park. How often is that really used? It takes up a significant area. It's all concrete. Um, I think that was something that a lot of people put into their parks, 10, 20 years ago, and it got a lot of use back then. I don't know how much use it gets. Obviously, for us at Derby Days, it's kind of a dead space that doesn't get utilized. And so I think there's probably a really good opportunity to kind of go back to the community and say, is a skate park, given its size and how much space it takes, is that a good use of that area? And is there something else that would better fit, what the grants are looking for and what we would want to do at the park long term than taking up that big of an area for skateboarding and however else it's used.
You know, kind of along similar vein, I know that the old caretaker's house has been removed, or cottage. And I don't know if it's currently active, but there's still an electrical stub there. I mean, that might be a good area to look at how that could connect for like a food cart or something along those lines.
We did something new this year. We had the Yam Hill Grill or Fireside, whatever they changed their name, Fireside Grill, they changed their name to. They rather than just have a booth, we set up a beer garden there.
Oh,
They
cool.
that's we utilize that utility pole. So it's a
Okay.
primary source of
Okay.
electricity on the west side of the park. And they did a full, they had a bar, they had their pizza kitchen out there.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was the first time we ever kind of created a beer garden seated
Okay.
area covered with a key restaurant vendor from town that was all set up. And I think it was a pretty big hit. There was quite a few people hanging out in there. That's not to say that my main experience with the park is Derby Days.
Hmm.
But I think there's a opportunity for us in the future that Beulah Park is utilized by a lot more people for a lot more things than just Derby Days.
So I'm thinking it was, I think Jeremy is that who's on Samsung?
Yes.
Yeah. So were you the one at city council that mentioned the parks or for sporting fields?
Well, the Jane Heinrich Park, the two baseball fields.
Right. Yeah. So I think I, I think there's a definite need there. I think.
Well, I
Yeah.
think we can generate revenue for the city of Yamhill if we had two baseball fields. I mean,
Yeah.
I know Banks has a youth baseball tournament that brings in $8,000 to $10,000 in a day, once a year. I know that Crater in Newburgh does 3-day tournaments, and they bring in pretty substantial amount of money, 4 weeks a month. That's about 4 months out of the year. I mean, there's definitely opportunity for money there.
Yeah.
I mean, we can use that money for other things. I'd just like to see a baseball fields get put in. We got 12 teams and 4 fields. It's a fight every single day. I mean, I'm at baseball practice right now.
Mhm.
Um, it's almost impossible to get a feel of one of our fifth, sixth grade teams. I mean, Shay's son's on the team. We're practicing in a field, not even on a baseball field right now, because every field is being utilized by one of the 12 teams. I mean, this time of year with the field still being wet and only having 3 indoor gyms, it's really difficult to find a place to practice. And even more so, it's even more difficult to find a place to play a game. I was hoping that Mark Rodriguez could be with us, but he is tied up with practice himself. He's also coaching a team. I know that we haven't even gotten a junior minor schedule yet because our district, which is 7 different towns, doesn't have enough fields to play on. Oh, looks like Mark Rodriguez is here.
Just joined.
We do need fields, and I know that I can help out with donations or time. I know that pretty much every father in the program is willing to help out with donations and time, along with moms and athletes. I don't know what else we can put it together as far as fundraising. I mean, we can work on that. And I'm a contractor. I work with other contractors, and they love to give money to kids.
Jeremy, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
The baseball fields, forgive my ignorance, but can they be utilized for softball fields, or do they have to be different?
Well, we can do what we call like a 5-pin setup. So you'd have an underground pin, and you just move the bases based on the sport. So whether it's first, second grade in T-ball, we use the same size of field. Junior minor, which is third and fourth, they use a different size of field. Fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, all play on the same field. In high school, plays on a different field. Softball plays on a different field. But the pins allow us to move the bases in a position that is good for that specific sport. Along with leaving the mounds flat, we can bring in portable mounds for baseball and leave the mounds flat for softball. So there's really no reason we can't utilize it for every single field sport there is. I mean, I know in Newburgh they have a kickball team and they do beer league softball. We can use it for all of that. And I know that those are all sponsored events. I mean, Mark and I had talked about, we could do contractor and business donations where you just like the high school, $500 a flag. We hang it up on the fence. 10 flags, that's $5,000 a year. You have 2 fences. There's $10,000 a year you're just throwing in a pot. I don't see why we can't do that. And the thing with YC, as I'm sure if you've been to one of our sporting events, those spots are sold out. There's not a spot that I own a business. I'm on a list to get on that field. Believe it or not, I want to give my money. They can't take it. They don't have a spot to put my flag. It's really a thing. These small towns, people know who they are. And I can tell you that I would put into that. Yeah, Shay.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I promise you, if we get that field put up down there, I'll find a spot for you to pay to put a sign.
Yeah, I'd love to see Go Ducks up there. Yeah, I'd love it.
I guarantee it.
Mayor, what about if we just took his money and put it on the side of City Hall right now?
There you go. Yeah, I've done plenty of work at City Hall.
So one of the last things I think down there, especially if you put the fields in and we already have the RC track, I think having some sort of a small pavilion and nothing major, but just a covered area with a couple picnic tables or something.
That would be great.
Do we know
would be
why,
great.
or has there, besides, money, is there some reason that it's difficult to put a baseball field in or softball field?
So
We're already in.
I could take that one, JR. We used those fields before, I guess, back in the day. I think our numbers weren't as high back then, so there wasn't as big of a desire or as big of need. So they kind of just went a little bit and they just let the grass grow and kind of overtake it. So now as we are definitely growing, and like JR said, last year we had 2 junior minor teams. This year we have 4, and the numbers just continue to go. And we are, we are running out of space. We have all 3. I just left the Carlton field and we have all 3 teams down there right now. And so it definitely would not, it wouldn't take too much to get them back up into a form that we could use. And we definitely could do a lot more tournaments. Like JR said, this is a very desirable place. Every team that comes out here, no matter what sport, if they're playing outside, every away team is just blown away with the view and the feeling that they come when they get out here. So if Yamhill could profit on that, that would be huge.
I'm sorry our public works manager isn't on this call. But I do think that there are some issues. Maybe Mary, maybe you know more about it too. But some floodplain issues with the fields.
I would say that, and go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I actually just spoke to some people whose sons played on that very field 30 years ago. And they said that although everybody brings up issues of drainage and flooding, and I actually just talked to the public works manager about that. But they said that they played in rain and good weather both and never had flooding issues.
Kirsty, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say yes, the fields were quite wet out there when we were there, but also access I think would be something that is have to be considered carefully. It is that and parking because it is a more awkwardly shaped space just to make sure that we're considering those two factors. Not that that could not be overcome or anything, but I think that's something that maybe have contributed to these two existing softball fields not being utilized to their full potential.
And
I've
then
talked with,
the
oh, go
other
ahead.
two things that I have heard more than once with regard to Jane Heinrich and uses for it, potential ideas for it. One is the dog park. So Sean mentioned that, but others have mentioned it as well. So I just don't know if there's enough space to do all of it, but I just want to put them on the table. Dog park area, the nature trail, baseball, softball fields, and then if there's still room left over, a potential frisbee golf stations, were some options that I've heard. So just to put all that out there.
As far as the dog park thing, you still have the arm to the right over by the ponds. There's kind of a big area there that's probably not real usable from a baseball, but there's an access point. You have to walk the trail to get back there. But I mean, if that was right now, it doesn't get mowed very as often, but if that was mowed more, that could be used for that too, as a dog area.
One thing I did want to point out too is it sounds like these are all really good needs, is we don't have to be limited to just the two existing parks. This is a 20-year outlook, and so maybe that needs to become a priority that we look at adding entire new facilities to the park system.
Where do we have the space?
Speak to that. So a couple of thoughts. The gravel lot across from City Hall. The city administrator and I actually were just in a meeting, what you say, a month ago, in regards to the purchase of that piece of property as a potential idea at the time was maybe a Veterans Memorial Park, something that would kind of anchor the downtown a little bit, great for derby days, parades, things like that. And the other one is we actually do own property up at Turner Creek. And I think when they were speaking of yurts and things like that with heaters and bathrooms, I would imagine that's where they were speaking of. It's a very forested area. And
Okay.
that's where I would imagine that was probably thought of.
I mean, back to the baseball fields, it looks like the only issues that I've seen so far, spoke with Jason Wofford about, is the fields do get water standing, but he said he already has the approval to run drainage into the creek without any issue. I mean, that's a one afternoon fix really with the trencher. Digging out the fields, I don't really see much effort there. I mean, I know there's several excavators in town. Brian King was going to be on here. He owns excavation company. He's got he's got grandkids that play softball that would probably be part of it. So I'm sure we could get them to help out. King and Sons does great work. I mean, I own my own excavator and tractor. I could also do work down there too. I think that what's limiting us is just somebody telling us we're able to do it. I think that if we could scrape enough people together, we could make that park happen pretty quick for baseball or softball.
Is there a need for synthetic turf fields?
I don't really see a need for it. I mean, I think kids like playing on grass. I mean, it's more fun to slide on. It hurts less to slide on. These are little kids, and when we have synthetic fields at that level, if you're gonna have a dog park close by, that's gonna be a mess. I think with grass can be mowed, dog waste can be picked up. With a synthetic field, urine and dog feces can be really a mess, and then getting teams out there to play on it. I think that grass is the best for baseball. The grass is the best for softball. The ball bounces a little differently. It doesn't travel as far. These are little kids. These aren't going to be, high schoolers out there playing. We'll
Is there
probably have
room enough
seniors,
for
seventh,
both
eighth grade.
fields and the dog park, or
I
no?
believe so. I
Oh.
believe so. I mean, the backstop's already down there. They were already slated to be baseball and softball fields. Alex Hurley kind of headed it up, I want to say about 10 or 12 years ago. And he's the guy that really put this whole thing into the Heinrich Park into play. I've spent a
I
lot of
don't
time
know
with
who
Alex. He's a
Alex
really good guy.
is.
Alex Hurley was one of the owners of AKS.
Hmm.
He's a local dad, baseball coach, football coach. He's been around Yamhill a long time. He just recently moved to Montana, so he's kind of stepped away.
Hmm.
His kids are out of school now. His youngest, I think, is a senior over in Montana. But they were big in baseball for a long time here, and they dumped. I mean, I think that's who donated the money to put most of that stuff into play down there. Um, I know his site was putting baseball and softball down there to expand to have a place for kids to play that doesn't involve just YCTC or Yamhill Carlton School District. That the kids could go play baseball without having to worry if they're going to get in trouble for playing on a field. Which we have now. Like you can't just go down to Carlton Park and play baseball. You can't just do that. You have to get okay from Carlton. You can't go to the high school and play on any of their fields. You have to get okay from high school. They're all fenced off. There's really no place other than the intermediate school, which is completely fenced off now and has right field is in direct line of traffic if a ball pops that fence. This would be a place that kids could go play baseball without having to worry who's going to tell them it's okay or not okay. Dads can go throw balls to their kids without having to worry are they going to get in trouble for trespassing on Carlton's field. It's a real issue for us. And I know from a dad standpoint, I call I call Amy over in Carlton and go, hey, is it okay if I go play on the field today? I'll call Brad Post up at the high school and go, hey, do you mind me and the boys run down to the baseball field and play catch? I mean, I'm pretty lucky that I grew up here and know people here and went to high school and grade school here because I know people. But there's plenty of families that are moving here that don't know that. And it'd be nice to have a place that we could just go play baseball.
How many parking stalls would you say you would need for a tournament type event? Like how many people
I
typically
mean, well,
attend that?
if you have 10 kids per team and two teams, you got 20 kids playing baseball. 40 kids total. Let's figure a car per kid. Let's just say that. So you'd need 40 parking spots. But you maybe 50% more than that, 60, including grandparents. Most of the coaches are dads, so you don't have to extra car for coaches. Softball, most of the coaches are moms. You don't need an extra parking spot for that. If we're going to tie in a trail that goes to Beulah Park, how beautiful it would be to walk under the bridge on your way to a baseball game. You'd be like going to Autzen as a Ducks fan. It'd start something that we could continue with my kids. I mean, my oldest son's 25. He'll be 26 in July. He's talking about getting married and having kids. How amazing would it be for his generation to start getting to make that part of their walk into the baseball field. I mean, there's a lot of vision here. I mean, I grew up here. I've seen this place change so much. The one thing I have seen change the most is the lack of care for their kid athletes. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys went to school here and remember going to a football game. The stadium was packed. You go to a baseball game, you couldn't find a place to sit. Now you go to one of those events and there's hardly anybody there. It's because our community doesn't get around it. We need that back. I think that's gonna help with everything. The Beulah Park, getting kids in there, baseball, football, soccer, softball, just getting people involved. We don't have a place to do that at all.
Change gears a little bit. I think those are great points. Um, One of the things that I brought up with YCC, and it kind of ties into what Jeremy was saying about having corporate sponsors on the baseball field. I think that's something that we need to think about in everything that we do. So I had proposed to the YCC group, and we were talking about what we would want to do with the park before it became this larger discussion, is give an opportunity for locals, local businesses, people that want to contribute to the community to contribute in a way that like memorializes something. So I was suggesting we build a veteran memorial, do a new sign for Beulah Park, make it look really nice, come up with a theme of what we want and what the look is, whether it's more natural or brick or et cetera. And hearing Shay, you talk about the potential for a veterans memorial in town, I think that's a great idea. What I would want us to be able to do in all those instances is sell bricks where people can put their name on them. Or a company can do that. And so I said, I mean, I bet you if it was $50 or $100 and you could put your family's name on a brick, memorialize a grandparent, put a corporate name on there, you could probably sell 5 bricks. I mean, we could pay for the monument, and I was talking about how we would pay for a new Beulah Park sign. And I think it's in the same spirit of give all of the local businesses an opportunity to put their name on a sign on the baseball park. Give them the opportunity to buy a brick and then put it into the ground or into the wall and so on. I think that's something super cool. It creates a lot of pride, generates some income, gives people an opportunity, a cool way to memorialize something, and it keeps people involved. Now you parent takes their kids there. Hey, look, there's our name right there on that, on that brick right there. I can go to the Giants ballpark. I think when they built Pac Bell Park, we bought one of those bricks. It was like $200, and our names our names at the Giants Stadium in San Francisco. And like my family goes and looks at that every time. And so we could do something just like that, and it would fund it, create a lot of pride, and I think, and of course, generate some income to fund what we're doing. So I think
I think
that's
it's a
something
great
that we
idea.
should keep in mind, that contribution of not just corporate, that's fantastic. We need to do that, but also locals, and getting more people involved with the progress and the additions and the improvements that we make to the community overall, whether it's the park, the ball fields, a veterans memorial, etc. I think that's it.
The Economic Development Committee met. We were talking about the town memorial park idea that Shay mentioned, and bricks was one of the things that we talked about. So I think
Cool.
people are on board with that.
Not only is that a great idea, and it's been looked at, like Shelley just mentioned, but I've actually been looking through the different companies that do it, and it's a beautiful thing. You literally have a sign-up sheet, and you can go right online, and it's basically drop ships to Yam Hill.
Mhm.
So you turn your thing in, whatever you want for your brick, or whatever fundraiser can do that for you. The brick company engraves the brick and sends it along with a check to the city.
Oh,
It's,
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, it's one stop, easy shopping.
Yeah, the museum, the agricultural museum in Yam Hill, or in the Yamhill County, the one where they do the plowing and they've got the tractors out there. They did a big fundraiser, and I bought a brick, and they were doing some expansion, and that's how they were helping pay for it. So it's a fantastic way to do it, and people love, being able to go and point out, hey, look, there's our brick. I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So let's keep that as a note, that whatever we do, try to
But
integrate that into the
that's a great
process.
idea. That's how they paid for the new ag building at the high school. You
Mhm.
go and stand in front of the new ag building, you'll see all the bricks with different contractors' names on it to help build it and donate money to build it. The school
Yep.
didn't pay anything out of pocket, and it got built. It's really cool.
One other point I made a note here, Christy, as we think about doing this, I had this experience with the Yamhill Community Club, and it sounds like Jeremy's got a similar mindset. We're talking about a long-term plan. There's also a desire for all the people that are involved in Derby Days. I'm hearing from Jeremy on the baseball park side of things, that there's all these people that can do stuff right away. So, I said we could probably stand up a wood we could stand up a structure in a short period of time. I mean, excavators and builders and contractors, and I mean, if you just look at the group of people at Derby Days, it's the 12 people that you'd need and their companies to build a
Right.
day. And so there's the ability for us, I think, to move quickly and to just get something done. And then I don't know if it contradicts, but there's also we want to make a 20-year plan,
Right.
and do it long term. And so I think if you said we want a new structure at Beulah Park, well, there's a lot of people that we could get to, a 250,000, 500,000 raised and donated and contributed and in-kind donations, and we get something built. And then
Mhm.
there's also, we want to do something really nice. It's a part of a 20-year plan. We're going to apply for grants, and we're going to do something really big. And I think we need to find the balance of that. So like we could turn that grass into a ballpark quickly. We could
Mhm.
also have a plan to make a more long-term ball field area with structures and, bleachers, and do a lot more. And that might take a little bit more time. But I think
Mhm.
one of the keys is, how do we start if it's going to take 2 years or whatever the time limit might be in the 20-year plan to actually get the baseball vision for the town completed, how do we move faster on the
Mhm.
interim steps that can be taken so that people can start to get value out of it before the long-term vision is achieved?
I like that.
There's a balance we need to find, because exactly what Jeremy was saying about, Brian King is in Derby days too. He's like, he's got gravel, and I have an excavator, and he's got an excavator, and everybody's got a tractor. And like there's a lot of people that have no problem saying like, I've got equipment, let's do it. I'll donate the gravel, I'll donate the bark, we can figure this out. And there's just kind of this, well, we need permission, or there's too many people, and there's people involved that we don't have them here, and so on. So we have the most important thing, which is the desire and the willingness to donate time, energy, money, equipment, services. So we can do things quickly as a community, and I think that's super cool. And let's figure out how do we leverage that while we also set this long-term plan
Well,
that
oftentimes,
might involve, getting a grant, and that might take 2 years before we get the money and so on.
well, a lot of times those can kind of snowball in a good way too,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
The way
And I'm
I
also
would see it respect to the ballpark is, yes, I mean, we could go down. I mean, to get a field that little kids could play on would literally be a weekend with people involved from Yamhill putting their efforts together. Just something that's playable, something where they actually have bases to run. Then tie into the long term with this master plan, the additions, like you had mentioned, a pavilion or food courts or the big paved parking lot, whatever that looks like. But I definitely think with 6 months to even complete this plan, that we might look at getting the baseball fields playable. I think that happens way faster than 6 months from now.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If you build it, they will come. I can promise you that. I mean, yes, if it would be something that YCTC would be more than happy to help with and participate in. However, obviously right now we are in the crunch of, trying to find fields and trying to get kids out there. So, and, as far as the flooding and everything like that goes, I think that area, while it does have water, is a lot less than what we currently deal with down at Wendenberg Park. And then definitely compared to our sister city in Gaston, they flood. I mean, their baseballs are in a pond, so they basically have to wait for a week worth of sunny, dry weather to access their field. So, no, if we made progress on it, we can get kids on there as soon as you guys had it available.
anybody lost a shoe yet? I had that happen one time.
we have in Gaston.
It's their plan.
So there's
Kirsty, is there any reason why we couldn't pursue developing the fields quickly for baseball season while we're working on the long-term plan?
100%.
Or is there, I mean, I'm just curious, organizationally, is there some reason?
I do want to be cognizant of the public process and making sure that we're putting it out to the community as a whole. But that being said, that like you say, there is, the backstop's already there. There might be drainage improvements that we'd want to do anyway that could help with that, which are probably feasible. I think probably the biggest thing the challenge would be parking for now.
Just curious, process-wise, if that was a possibility or not.
Yeah, I mean, definitely this discussion will be helping to frame those questions we put to the community at large, but I do want to make sure that we're doing that. So
I have a process question.
Yeah.
Does the master plan include discussions or include potential changes to, I was thinking in terms of the other side of my hat here, the code changes and stuff, so that as new subdivisions come in or new development, we can have expectations of contributing to the park system in some way.
So the master plan may not be able to implement that code, but it could make a recommendation.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to, for every 100 houses or 50 houses you put in, you got to build a park.
Yeah. That's probably how you guys got this one.
That I don't know. I wasn't.
What park are they putting in or upgrading for the new houses they just put in off of 3rd Street?
I don't.
We're able to utilize Beulah
They will be used without any kind of upgrades or donations.
That the contractors for the new development were asked to make other uh contributions to the city,
Okay,
and they were allowed to not put in a park because of the proximity to Beulah, and they
I
took
see.
care of some other things with our water systems and so forth.
Oh,
And
good trade-off.
paved this access area too, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Good trade-off.
something that we kind of talked about, it's not currently owned, but the city is maintaining this field here, and that might be a discussion topic that, maybe we need to look at seeing if we can acquire that either through like a donation or purchase or something along those lines. I mean, to me, that area looks, I think it's being used kind of as a multi-purpose field for people that want to go toss a frisbee around or anything, but might be good overflow parking or event space for a festival or something too. So,
We use it
Yeah,
for
Christy,
Derby Day parking.
the owner of that property, I'm not sure who it is, but that comes, the Derby Days crew
mhm.
brings that, they know that person well,
Okay.
and we bring it's a topic every year of, hey, are they gonna cut it? Is the city gonna cut the grass? And
Mhm.
that is overflow parking for
Okay.
Derby Days. Um, and I know that those guys that have been around a lot longer than me, they've brought up, I'm wondering, how come we can't buy this? Or yeah, this is why we haven't been able to buy it. But yeah, that's been an ongoing topic that I've overheard in the 3 years that I've been involved in Derby Days. Jim Phillips knows a lot more about that situation, I think.
I've never seen it flood. Is there a water issue down in there?
It's definitely lower. I mean, it's
Mhm.
you go
I've
down a
seen it
pretty,
underwater.
yeah.
The bottom
But
portion of
it's
it, so on the screen, the sort of the middle left, I believe that gets pretty wet.
okay,
But
This
that's a
is
decent hill too.
right.
Yeah, it is.
this is a creek area too, so.
Yeah,
I
in
could tell you
July
we're growing
during
up
Derby
here.
Days, it's perfectly dry, but
Mhm.
in March, I don't know what that looks
Well,
like.
and if it's overflow, I mean, the main time the Beulah needs the overflow is Derby Days.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
That used to actually be a racetrack.
Hmm.
I
For
don't know if you
like,
guys have seen the carts at Derby Days running around with the Wayne Stonebrink or Jim Phillips has one. They're like little go-karts, but they have dirt tires on them. They used to race in that field right there when I was a little kid
oh, cool.
in
Cool.
the 80s. And then I can tell you there's probably about 4,000 kids in Yamhill learn how to ride their dirt bike in that field.
So like go-karts and steroids.
Kinda not really
Yeah.
fast, but
Yeah.
mostly kind of just old guys bumping into each other having fun. And the carts passed down from generation to generation for a long time.
Oh,
Every
nice.
now and then you'll see one run around Derby Days.
One of the small towns near where I live has lawnmower races during their festival days, which I always
Hmm.
thought that was kind of fun.
Christy or Shelley, can you tell us a little bit about the overall process? Right now we're kind of chatting and going through the ideas and so on. What happens next? What's kind of like a general timeline of objectives and goals for this process?
Sure. So we, like I mentioned, are kind of in this intermediate phase where we're starting to look at what's there, having these conversations with you guys. But we also are needing to start that public outreach process. And so what you've presented here is really helpful for me to start that. So we will be doing a community outreach survey that'll be available online for people. We'll also be doing an open house event. Um, and I would like that to be open at least a month for people just to make sure that, if they have questions, they can come to that open house event and making sure we're getting a good profile of people answering that question. Once we close that, whether that's a month and a half, then we'll be taking a summary of that and coming back to you guys with that, and that will help us kind of develop some conceptual master plans and recommendations for like how we're ranking priority development type projects. And then again, we'll come back to you after we have that draft for review and then put that out again for the final approval of that kind of compiled document. So we'll be looking at higher level things. We won't be getting the gritty detail of, how many parking spaces need to be provide for tournament type events and things like that. But um, just kind of really that these are things that are achievable now, like you mentioned. These are things that may be longer term. These are things that maybe should be bumped up priority just because of safety concerns. Maybe another thing would be looking at how we rank um, where we're putting those on the recommendation list too.
Kirsty,
But
for the folks that were not able to be on tonight, there's a
Mhm,
couple I'm thinking of that I know were really very much wanted to be
sure.
and have a lot of ideas as well.
Mhm.
Um, what's the process for incorporating their ideas? Is that going to happen before the public outreach? Will we have another one of these meetings before that, or how does this work?
Um, that would be good. I think, this has been recorded. Hopefully we can share that with him. I'm happy to share this presentation and, answer any questions that they might have. Um, I didn't think we had scheduled another meeting until we're reviewing the outreach results, but
Okay,
I think it would be good
if
to,
there was one
uh,
before or not.
yes, but I think it would be good to come back to this group with our survey questions and get your feedback before we make those public. We could
Okay.
certainly do that and just get, your written feedback on that. I think that would be a good idea. So,
So then in between now and then, we would want to make sure that the other individuals listened to this and then maybe got their input to you
hmm
separately.
hmm
The reason why I was curious about the timeline is when I think this was last year, we were looking at doing stuff on the park YCC or
hmm
EML Community
hmm
Club for Derby Days.
Yes.
And I was looking at corporate grants. And
Yes.
so there's a whole bunch of corporations that do small town grants. Like
hmm
T-Mobile has one, and Weyerhaeuser has one, and so on and so forth. And there's a very common deadline. So
hmm
I think it's July 1st.
Yeah.
And the main requirement to apply for all of those corporate grants and many of the other grants that I could find is having a master plan. So with YCC, that's the first thing that
hmm
we did, and we got that completed at the end of the year. So obviously we didn't apply for any grants, but now we have a master plan. And back then, this kind of dovetails into my next point is YCC does a lot of stuff related to the park. Like part of our charter is to maintain and improve Beulah Park specifically. I don't think we've never integrated any other parks. And again, I've only been helping out for the last couple of years, and
hmm
everyone else there grew up in Yamhill, so they have a lot more history. Um, and so that's as we do this, what finding a I want to know a little bit more. I'm hoping to a little bit more about the timeline of when we expect, like, what's our target date to have a new master plan? Is that the end of the year? Is that, the summer? How long does this take to do this? And then on the second point of how do the community organizations that are currently involved in contributing to the parks, paying for things, maintaining them. YCC does a lot at one park at Beulah. I think the Downtown Association does some other things, and we both kind of do stuff with Beulah. There's some overlap there.
hmm
And that's something that I've been talking to the group about is everybody's trying to achieve the same thing, want to make the park as good as we can. And we have different, overlapping views, and some of them compete a little bit. As a good example, YCC wasn't involved with the sign that went up at Beulah Park. I think the Downtown Association was, and that's a good thing. But it was like there was two groups who were both trying to improve the park in a similar way, and one doesn't know what the other one's doing. And now we're doing a master plan at the city level for all the parks. So I think finding a way to integrate the community groups that have maintaining and improving these parks as their charter, like YCC, and then some aspects of their charter, like the Downtown Association, I think does. And then aligning, should YCC apply for grants related to the park? I think we could get one, but does it make any sense if the city could apply for the same grant, and figuring that stuff out? Because when you look at the other cities that have great stuff going on, if you look at, top parks in Oregon in small towns, I mean, you'll find articles about some of the towns that are similar size to us that are known for how great their parks are. They had a master plan, they applied for a grant, they got the grant, they got it paid for, they got it done. And I think that's the potential that we have over the next couple of years here as we achieve these goals and work towards them. So making sure that we're aligned on take setting everything up in a way that maximizes the chance that we get as much money as we possibly can, and we do this, as well as we possibly can,
Mhm.
and not end up in, I don't, this group doesn't know what that group's doing. We're both applying for the same grant and neither one of us got it, that sort of thing.
So do you feel like a master committee that met quarterly or something would be?
It's one of those things like, well, why doesn't everybody just go to the city hall meeting and it's, well, it's
Right.
herding cats sort of deal. I think, but before Shelley got here, and I think now we're in a different stage because back then the city wasn't super involved. The master plan at the city level was from 2004. So I pushed YCC. If we're going to maintain the park and there's money available and we can't get it because we don't have a master plan, let's create one. So we did. I
So
mean, I literally sat down
Brad,
on a weekend and wrote it. And
I
now I
think
think we've got a lot more potential to do this the right way. And so let's use this as an opportunity to get the people that care about it and have the right mindset to get them in the same room, on the same page, all working towards the same goal and put all of our efforts together.
so Brad, I think that is really the purpose of this particular committee is
Okay.
the Parks Advisory Committee to the city council.
Okay.
And I don't know. I'm not experienced enough with the private grants to know, but I would imagine when you say like YCC created a master plan, that's great. However, because the city park is the city's, you would have to have the city's master plan probably for some of those grants, I think.
Yeah, it was more like if you're a charity and you want to ask for money, and
Mhm.
charities that maintain parks,
Right.
the
So I,
charity needs to have a long-term plan and that's what you upload to the grant application. And we didn't have one. No, nobody could find it from. I think Jim
yeah,
was saying we wrote one in the 80s, but I don't know where it is.
but
Uh,
I
and
think to
so
your
and so we
point,
wrote one, but I think it would be a much better fit if the city of Yamhill was applying for those grants,
yeah,
especially at
no,
the state
I think
level.
that's probably the wisest way for all of us and the most efficient is because since it's like city property, the city would be the sort of the owner and the author of the grants, but incorporating the YCCs and the YDAs and the YCTCs into the plan, which is
Yeah.
essentially what we're doing here with this process. So,
Okay.
And
um,
and you don't have a specific Parks Advisory Board, correct?
not currently.
So maybe that is something that we should look at recommending, and then that gives that more of a park focus that then reports to the council and
Yeah,
the
that could
city.
come from this process, certainly.
I think that was my understanding how this was going to end up, was this is the
Well,
committee for the parks as this concludes.
This is the Parks Advisory Committee for creating the plan. And then once the plan is created, whatever is decided that is in the plan, then you would then go about achieving those things through grants and through other things. So if the people that are in this particular committee want to continue to stay on that group, then that would be what we could create from that. But this particular committee is created specifically for the plan. And then, you know, we can do with it whatever everybody decides they want to do, if they want to continue on or not.
What's the best guess for when a master plan document might be created?
I
I
don't
have no idea how long that takes. So
it
no expectation here. Just curious.
we're still shooting for that 6 months overall. I don't think we're probably going to meet. It'll be summer. It'll be the summer. I don't think we probably are going to get it in time for a July, like first type grant applications or anything like that for this year.
Okay.
But um, definitely for next year, and we won't be trailing, I don't think that far behind that. I just, like I said, I want to make sure that I don't want to rush the public outreach process,
Yeah.
for one
So
thing. So,
potentially the city of Yamhill has a new updated long-term plan starting in 2026.
well,
By
yeah,
the end.
hopefully adopted in the summer, right?
Okay.
Five.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And like I said, I can share this if you guys have any other thoughts as you think on it a bit. I'd welcome extra comments and things. And then I think, Shelley, I think you had a good idea. Let's share the public outreach questions for the survey with a group and get some feedback before we do that. We could just do that via email or whatever.
And I'm trying to remember because I know I got these slides. Did we share these slides with the entire committee yet?
I don't think so.
We can do that as a follow-up, and then those that weren't able to jump on can listen to the call and the Zoom and see the slides. So,
Oops. And I just zoomed past it, but let's see here. I do have my contact information there too, as well as Shelley. So,
okay, great. Thank you.
well, this was a lot to take in. I really appreciate everybody's good comments. This is one of the reasons I really like working with smaller towns. Coming from a smaller town myself, is it's just nice to see that attitude of we can get it done, you know.
So to recap, from here, we're going to send out the Zoom link for everybody and the slides so everyone can sort of recap and refresh, give others a chance to listen. We're going to get some draft survey questions out to the group via email for your feedback and review. And then those will go out to the community and we'll receive those responses. Then we'll also have an open house to the community and allow that process. This committee would be notified to obviously be there and participate. All of that feedback will then be summarized by you, and then we will meet again as a committee via Zoom to discuss the outcomes from those.
Right.
Okay, and then from that, there would be a draft plan that would then go before council, or would this committee meet one more time?
This committee would meet one more time.
More time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. To review that, make any adjustments we need to.
Okay. Great. I think that was it. Is there anything else?
Cool. I think that was all I had.
Okay. Great. Mayor, did you have anything more?
No, I think we have a good start.
I think
Okay.
one thing I forgot to mention was that YC has bleachers that they used when they had condemned the football stadium that they're looking to get rid of, and I think we could probably get them for free for the lower field. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
So just to clarify, Jeremy, with you guys, your sort of timeline is as far as the little kids baseball is like, if you could get a field together this weekend, you would do it and use it, right? Like that's your
Yeah.
time right now.
Other than Easter, my wife would kill me. Yeah, I'd drop what I've got going on and start putting field together first thing tomorrow morning.
But I mean, your need for it is like right now.
Yes, right this minute, like yesterday. Mark can speak to it. Mark, I think Mark popped off, but we are looking, we don't even have a schedule yet for our first and second graders because we don't have fields. And it's not just us, it's Vernonia, Gaston. We don't have fields to play on.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have a schedule yet. Everybody else has schedules. I've got schedules for my other two baseball teams, but my first and second grade has no schedule. Our softball program is almost non-existent because of our field position, because our kids got to go practice in McMinnville. It's hard to field a team and then tell parents, oh, by the way, you need to be in McMinnville by 5:30 for practice. So yeah, we're in need of fields like right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Kelly, what's the state of the parks budget? I mean, if we needed to spend $50,000 or something to pull off, bleachers or, just throwing that out there.
We
Like,
have
what-
money in the SDCs, which is limited as to what you can use.
water bottle, Milo, behind you.
But the parks fund itself is a little bit more limited. I don't have numbers in front of me. So, but we have limited funds in parks to actually do the improvements.
Okay.
So that's where the grant money would need to come in.
Okay, Angie has it. Come on.
Or donations.
You don't get grant money until you have a plan.
Right. We can do it with donations too. Okay.
All money
Okay.
is welcome.
I guess it sounds like I have an okay to start making some phone calls to find money.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your time. I know it takes away from family time, so I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thanks,
Okay,
Ellen.
All right. We'll see you.
have a good day,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
You too.
All
Bye.
right.
Bye bye.